This information was originally presented to building and curriculum leaders from IU13 schools on the afternoon of February 11th, 2013. Joey Ryder-Bertrand and Amanda Paveglio co-presented. Joey is the MSP Project Director, and Amanda is the MSP Project Coordinator. For publishing purposes, the presentation has been split into 3 parts. This is Part 2. This recording was made by Amanda Paveglio on February 25th, 2013. Welcome! Part 2 of our presentation will cover the results of our needs assessment and how the content, theme, and partners involved in Pulse will reflect that needs assessment. An overview of the grant program, a side-by-side comparison of Project ARMS and Pulse, and school eligibility requirements have been covered in Part 1 of this presentation, which has been recorded separately. A description of our school involvement model, benefits to schools and teachers, and next steps for schools wishing to participate has been covered in Part 3 of this presentation, which has also been recorded separately. We asked a lot of questions in our online needs assessment surveys. We had over 250 responses from public and non-public teachers alike, and we asked the same questions of all teachers regardless of what they taught. Some of the questions were asked to establish the quantity and nature of STEM-related professional development during the previous school year. Other questions asked teachers' opinions on how they would feel about cross-disciplinary interaction and how deeply they felt they understood the big ideas for math and science. Here are some sample questions from our surveys. And here are their overall responses. As you can see, over half of respondents indicated that they had had 25 or fewer hours of STEM professional development in 2011-12, including STEM pedagogy training. Over 60% of them said that none or less than half of their professional development was to increase their content knowledge. Well over half of respondents thought that interaction between the math and science, math and tech ed, and science and tech ed departments would be at least moderately useful. And of the almost 20 big ideas asked about, the 3 lowest-ranking science and lowest-ranking math ideas were agricultural systems, biological evolution, energy transfer and conversion, geometry, measurement, and statistics. Our research of PSSA trends over the last few years aligns with these findings, particularly in math. Statewide, scores in algebra achievement have been high and climbing, while scores in geometry, measurement, and data statistics and analysis have been much lower. We decided to drill down a bit and disaggregate the data based on what content respondents taught. Here you can see the breakdown for some of those same responses on the previous slide, with math, science, and tech ed teachers' responses broken out. There were approximately 70 math teachers, over 120 science teachers, and about 40 or 45 tech ed teachers who responded, so these are not based on very small numbers in each group. We admit that we were a little surprised to see how the big idea questions broke down by discipline. It's understandable that the math teachers reported much higher understanding of those 3 math big ideas. But we were still surprised to see that almost 40% of math teachers reported moderate, at best, understanding of geometry topics, and a third were moderately or less comfortable with measurement. That almost 70% of technology education teachers were similarly uncomfortable with geometry and measurement came as a bit of a surprise. And science teachers reporting that approximately 46% of them were moderately or less comfortable with energy transfer and conversion and biological evolution was very eye-opening. When we have received questions such as, I'm a math teacher, do I now need to be responsible for teaching about energy or biology? Or, I'm a chemistry teacher, so why should I worry about geometry? Here is our response or our philosophy on that. With the arrival of the Keystone exams, students will now be prevented from graduating unless they pass those end-of-course tests. And with the implementation of Pennsylvania's new educator effectiveness legislation, eventually, a substantial portion of a teacher's evaluation will be based on building-level data, including test scores. So, while as a chemistry teacher or a math teacher, you may not be directly responsible for teaching biology, how well a student does on the Biology Keystone exam will have some impact on you and on your school. We've all now got a vested interest in knowing about other folks' content in our schools and how my content interacts with yours, and what we can do to increase student achievement and understanding. Pulse is designed to help address that by promoting and supporting conversations between colleagues and within departments. We also had open-ended questions on the online survey. One of the more prevalent questions was, as a math, science, or technology education teacher, what do you consider to be your greatest professional development need? We took those 250-odd responses and distilled them down to their core ideas, and here is a representation of those ideas. As you can see, real-world application, technology integration, and time to plan were mentioned frequently, as were project ideas, inquiry-based strategies, career education, and increasing student motivation. We took these responses and disaggregated them by math and science teacher responses. And as you can see, many of the same ideas were highlighted amongst the math teachers and the science teachers. What we take from this is that there is one large group of people in our region with very similar and overlapping professional development needs, rather than many smaller groups of people with disparate needs. And this is good news for our planning of professional development activities. We mentioned earlier that we will be focusing much more heavily on integrative STEM in this new proposal. Lots and lots of research has shown that math, science, and tech ed are interrelated and share content and skills. Kids get confused and fail to make connections when the disciplines are taught separately and don't acknowledge their areas of intersection. By aiming for some level of integration, even to a small degree such as using common vocabulary to discuss content and processes, students will make more of those connections, transfer knowledge, and retain understanding. Also, STEM education is full of college and career readiness applications, discussions, and learning. The application of math and science and technology is built right in. And really, why do we learn math and science if we don't plan to use some of it later on? Finally, instructional approaches in integrative STEM education will enhance the teaching and learning that's already taking place in math and science. Every summer for Project ARMS, we've had a theme for the Institute. Those themes have changed each year, and the themes for the Math and Science Institutes have had very little to do with each other, usually. For the Pulse Institutes, we looked for a theme that would encompass many different STEM disciplines that we could use for each of the project years that allowed us to leverage local and state resources, bring real-world relevancy to teachers and students, and speak to some of the needs that were identified on our needs assessment. Pennsylvania agriculture immediately came to the minds of the planning team. Why? For starters, it remains Pennsylvania's and Lancaster County's largest industry cluster, and every single person is impacted in some way by agriculture because agriculture produces food. Even for kids who live in cities, does it not make them better consumers and more informed decision makers when they know where their food comes from and all of the different factors that go into its production and how much it costs and how it got to their tables? Also, while Lancaster and Lebanon counties have many children who live on farms and may be involved in FFA, many of them may not be fully aware of all of the resources in their own backyards that contribute to farming and all of the other agricultural sub-industries. Our region is chock full of resources for exploring not just farming, but all of the ancillary industries that contribute to farming: alternative energy, nutrient and waste management, engineering, etc. Apparently, Lancaster County has more manure digesters per square mile than any other place in the U.S., and there is a facility here that is known worldwide for how advanced its manure digestion technology actually is. Another example is Case New Holland, right up Route 23 from the IU-13. Their engineering headquarters is here. While their equipment is produced in other locations, all of the design and testing of their machines is done by engineers right here in Lancaster County. Finally, we want to emphasize, though, that our goal is not to teach ag science during the Institute. We're not going to be focusing on cows and plows to the exclusion of the math and science content for which most of the Institute attendees are responsible. Rather, we want to use agriculture as a broad umbrella under which those activities and the application of that content can fall. We want to show that agriculture isn't only for farmers, but that engineers, biologists, chemists, mathematicians, logistics experts, and GIS mappers, for example, are all also involved. We were looking for an agricultural metaphor to show STEM learning for kids, and this corn cob is what was developed. It has 4 husks on it, one for each of the 4 STEM disciplines. Taken separately, and without regard to the core, they don't amount to much. They're flimsy, and you can't do much with them. But together, they wrap around and support the development of skills that all people need to grow and succeed in life, regardless of where life takes them. Problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, communication skills, and teamwork could be considered the fruit of STEM education. STEM education will help support student growth in all of these areas. Here are the partners who will be joining IU13 in developing and facilitating Pulse. The list is still growing, but these are the partners who are presently on board. From Millersville University of Pennsylvania, we will be working with the Mathematics Department and the Educational Foundations Department. From Lebanon Valley College, we will be working with their Masters of Science Education program. We will continue to work with Elizabethtown College's Science in Motion program, who has also been involved in Project ARMS. The Lancaster County Workforce Investment Board will be providing rich resources for Lancaster County agriculture and industry connections. The Lancaster Conservation District. The Penn State Extension is currently listed tentatively as a partner. If they are involved, they will be providing additional agriculture education resources and skills. And our current grant evaluators for Project ARMS, by the numbers, will also be doing evaluation work for Pulse. When you have questions, and we are sure you will, please do not hesitate to contact Joey or Amanda via phone or email. There is also a dedicated wiki site, iu13pulse.wikispaces.com, where news and announcements of the development of this grant will be posted. All 3 recorded parts of this presentation can be accessed there. Please use this site as an additional resource for any questions you may have. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day.